To you by Prepare Like a Pro. My name is Jack Mclean. I'm your host, and today I'm lucky enough to have Dr. Nick Poulos as our guest. Our key topic for today's chat is all about behind the scenes of high performance insights. That's something that Nick is currently doing in his role at GWS, but also has done in other programs. So if you're a high performance coach or looking to work towards being a high performance coach, definitely get your notepad out. And if you're tuning in live, feel free to send in some questions, as it's a great opportunity to learn and get better. But welcome, Nick. Thanks for jumping on, mate. Really looking forward to our chat.
Oh, pleasure, Jack. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity to have a chat to you. It's been a long time coming. I know I've had to put you off a few times, so we got there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and makes it even more. Persistence pays, hey? No doubt there'll be some talk of persistence and the importance of that. But yeah, thanks for finding time. I know it's a busy time of year as well for everyone in the industry, but particularly head of performance. But for those, no doubt, majority of listeners know exactly your background, mate. But for those that don't, do you mind providing a background on, I guess, how you started the industry, where you found your passion for it all, and of course your experiences a lot around the world?
Yeah, no problem at all. Look, I started way back in the early days and with my undergraduate in Canberra, in the University of Canberra, back in the early '90s. So that's where my academic background started. I always had a passion for sports science. I was unsure whether I wanted to go down the track of physiotherapy or sports science, but at the time, I think the only courses available, and I stand corrected on this, were one in Canberra, at the University of Canberra, and one over in Perth. I think Wollongong had an option too, but there wasn't too many options. So, and I wanted to get out of home fairly quickly. So I took the opportunity. Went down to Canberra and commenced my journey from there. And still, I was competing down there. I was competing as a track and field athlete and playing rugby at the same time, local rugby, club rugby in Canberra. Couldn't work out whether I wanted to be a track and field athlete or a full-time professional rugby player. So I did okay at both, but not top notch, but at least competed at a high level in track and field and reasonable level in rugby, but didn't quite go all the way. But finished my degree there. Ended up moving to Sydney with a girlfriend. Typical story. Started working as a personal trainer in Sydney. Working at the casino, trying to get a business going. Thinking about how I could actually find a way into professional sport. There were not many opportunities back there in the mid '90s, that's for sure. I missed an opportunity to trial for the Brumbies when they came into first inception in Canberra with a knee injury. So I was pretty much lost my way a little bit, but I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay committed to the cause. Just didn't know how to get there really as a young fella. I think in the late '90s. I mean, I got married in 1998 and just working my bum off completely, full-time work, running a personal training business, trying to get some odd bits and pieces in terms of coaching. I ended up, because I had a passion for rugby as well, did my coaching rugby qualifications, started working at my old school, Sydney Grammar, with the under-16s program. My nephew's team at St Patrick's College. So it sort of all started around there where I was like, I need to start dabbling into getting some time on the ground coaching. Ended up 2000, year 2000, my daughter was born just prior to the Olympics. And I ended up trying to start a master's then, because I thought, well, I can't quite find a way into developing some sort of internship. There was no real intern programs as such back then. You had to beg, borrow, steal to try and actually find a way to get into a professional team of sorts. Using a few connections. One of the guys, which I can talk about shortly, Andy Friend, a really, really wonderful coach and friend of mine who I actually studied at university with, was doing some work with the Waratahs too. So I lent on him a fair bit. So I got through the Olympics in 2001. I got struck down with leukemia, and I'm happy to share that because that wiped me out for pretty much the whole year. So had a lot of people rally around me to support me, sporting people, family, business people. Had been through a pretty tough time there, but just kept my feet on the ground because I wanted to keep working. So I reduced my workload to just having a few personal training clients and gave up full-time work. Had a lot of support around me, but got through that 2001 period and found my way into picking up a part-time coaching role really out at Penrith. If you know Sydney and all, Penrith's a long way out of Sydney, for virtually no money. Picked up my personal training business again, travelled out to Penrith looking at the coaching the Penrith Emus, Colts team, doing the S&C program and coaching rugby. Helped a little bit with the first grade program. I did that essentially for a year and a half, driving out to Penrith, 3 times a week, putting myself through a long time in the car, but still trying to heal, get myself remedied, I suppose, post the initial year of the treatment with my leukemia. Ended up taking a really good opportunity in 2002 with Eastern Suburbs Rugby, which is a lot closer to home and obviously a bit more palatable. And I was fortunate to work with a really, really good coaching team there, under the direction of Michael Doyle, Scott Bowen, Mark Bell, some of these guys' names that you may have heard of, especially in the rugby circles. I did a bit of defensive coaching around the S&C program for Eastern Suburbs, and so much so in 2003 we ended up winning the Shute Shield, which was fantastic for us in terms of club rugby. For those who know club rugby in Sydney, and I was just fortunate really to along the way to bump into a few people, speak to a few people from Japanese universities and teams who were visiting Australia. And so I ended up picking up some consulting work just by chance with some Japanese universities and school teams from a rugby and S&C perspective. And at the same time, having worked with some of the boys at Eastern Suburbs, especially the Tongan contingent, Hamani Lavaka in particular, he was an unbelievable human being. A big prop for us, played for Tonga, introduced me to a coach called Jim Love, who was former Maori All Blacks coach and was started coaching Tongan Rugby Union at the time. So I was invited into the Tongan team in 2003 to help prepare for the 2003 Rugby World Cup. So it was, that 3-4 period was a bit of a whirlwind. So it just sort of got me into, by chance, got me into the world of professional sport. So we got through the 2003 World Cup. I still wasn't earning enough money, if you want to call it that. PTing wasn't the way to go. I mean, obviously, I was pulling in some money. I didn't want to work a sales job or anything like that full time. So I ended up still, working with some university teams, Japanese teams, a couple of trips overseas, working with Eastern Suburbs, and then I decided, look, for what it's worth, I'll have a crack at the fire brigade. So I applied. Don't ask me why, Jack, why I did that, but it seemed palatable to me because you could train. At the time, 2 days on, 2 nights off. I could work my PTing around it, my coaching around it, fairly flexible. So I ended up being accepted fairly quickly into that, with some health cleared health wise. So took the opportunity to do that. Went to the academy. Was 6 months into my fire brigade career. I was offered a job in Japan. so I was like, well, what do I do here? I was offered a full-time job at Toyota Rugby in Japan, and do I take it or not? At the time, no one ever leaves a fire brigade. Some of my my crew at 14 Station Ashfield were looking at me going, "What are you doing? You
Yeah,
spent
it's
all
so
this
hard to
time
get in.
training.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get in, and now you." Well, I knew what I wanted to do. That was
Yep.
my career goal. So my wife and I and my daughter packed up bags and headed over to Japan, where we stayed for 3 years. I started my master's over there, the first master's degree through Edith Cowan University when it first came into inception, under the direction of Mike McGuigan and Mike Newton and the crew over there, and obviously Rob Newton. So I finished my master's in Japan, worked for 3 years, and we were based in Nagoya, which is not the prettiest city in Japan. We love Japan, but not the prettiest city in Japan. After 3 years, my wife wanted to get out. Had a few other opportunities present in Japan, but we're actually looking to head to Europe in terms of gaining some experience in professional rugby over there. Didn't quite happen. Was offered an opportunity to head to Aspire in the Middle East, so we took that opportunity. So we jumped over to Qatar and Doha, which ended up being an amazing experience. We were only going to stay there short term for a little while, but we ended up staying there for 4 years. And that in itself was an amazing experience, working with the coaches, sports scientists, strength and conditioning staff, all from all around the world in one place. I can share some experiences about that too. To keep my foot, I worked with a track and field program over there. At the same time, keeping my passion in rugby. Ended up coaching the Doha rugby team, which competes in the golf competition, and a lot of expats play there. Ex-internationals, but also a lot of, I suppose, late 20s, early 30s players who are working in the Middle East, but just wanted to keep training and playing. And the rugby club in Doha was a social place, so it was fantastic to meet a lot of people as well, a lot of expats. Finished my master's degree, started a PhD while I was in Qatar, which took a long time to complete. And I completed it in 2021. But look, got provided an opportunity really to come back to Australia by chance with LA Crows. So at the time, it was like, wow, I didn't expect it. It wasn't part of our plan to come back to Australia, but the opportunities within the AFL only present themselves from time to time. It was always going to be on my to-do list, but didn't realise I was going to have it at that stage. So ended up taking that opportunity, came back to Australia, spent 4 years at the Crows, which was a great re-entry back into Australia. Following that, ended up moving back to Sydney, back to rugby, and was had the opportunity to work with the Australian Sevens team, National Sevens team in Sydney, which was great to be back home, close to family. Did that for 3 years, and then ended up finding an opportunity to join the Giants back in the AFL, and this is my 6th season back in the AFL, and finished my PhD in 2001. So that's the journey.
Yeah, what a journey, mate. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And it's just goes to show that everyone's got their own journey, I guess, to the top. But the family, having supportive family along the way, and particularly when you're going in international opportunities like you had, but also some crossroads there, both from I guess rugby, coaching passion, your own track and field passion. And then, of course, health challenges, fire brigade opportunities, like so many moments there where you had to make big decisions, whether it be looking after yourself, looking after your family, but then, of course, the career ladder that we've all got to do if you want to work to the top. When making those big decisions, what sort of your go-to? Is it speaking to mentors? Is it more your inner close sort of friends and family? Is it the process that you've got yourself, I guess, like trusting your gut? Like, talk us through that when you're at the crossroads. You need to want to follow your passion.
All of the above. But I mean, first and foremost, it's my wife and family. I think you've got to get buy-in from them and look at the pros and cons and the financial versus career opportunities. But definitely talking to mentors and who they are at various stages of of your career and time, and bouncing ideas off them. If go through the whole what if situation. If I do this, is it going to benefit me in the future? What are the pros and cons, etc. Is it the right thing to do? Not the right thing? What if things don't go to plan? Going through all those scenarios, and I think it's important that you need to do that, but at the same time, not be afraid of the challenge and opportunity. Like first opportunity to go to the Middle East as an example, like it is daunting. But there's a lot of expats there. First opportunity when we went to Japan, like I remember the first day I arrived in Japan with my wife, like it sounded good on paper. Spoke to a lot of people, made the decision. We got there and it was the most gloomy, rainy, shocking day when we arrived in Nagoya. Showed Mandy the apartment that we were provided, and I think there was a moment there that we both looked at each other and go, oh my God, what the hell are we doing? Why did we do this? But at the end of the day, we lasted 3 years and we had a wonderful time there. But there's going to be those moments along the way. Same with the Middle East. The different culture, the environment itself, being in the desert, the heat, but then you look at the expats and the wonderful opportunity with the expats that were working there, both within the industry, but also just in general within the country. And we met a lot of wonderful people from around the world. So you look at that and go, well, it's a pinch yourself moment and say, well, what an opportunity we had when we reflect back on it.
And for the coaches listening in that are at that stage where they're perhaps studying maybe Bachelor of Sports Science and working out where they want to go with their career, sounds like you had some pretty clear to-do lists, whether it be international opportunities, your rugby coaching, the tactical, technical, as well as balancing that with your strength and conditioning progressions. And then you mentioned AFL and getting into that program, so different sports. How did you sort of come up with those sort of to-do lists? Was it through mentors, or was it more, speaking to just out of interest in exposing yourself to as many different challenges as you could? Sort of talk us through your mindset, I guess, early days when you're setting those goals.
Yeah, a bit of both, Jack. I think definitely talking to mentors. At some stage, I needed to make up my mind. I mean, when I first went to Japan, I was performing a dual role of coaching rugby as well as trying to run for 40 odd players a high performance program with only Japanese support staff. So I had to make it was a critical moment there where I had to make a decision as to do I really want to pursue a high performance career, if you want to call it that, sports science, strength and conditioning, or if I actually want to go down the coaching route. And there's a lot of good coaches out there at the time. I was going to be certainly passionate about it, but I'm not. As I shared earlier, I started my journey by doing a sports coaching, sports science degree in the early 90s. So you go back to your roots as what makes you think, what makes you tick, what drives you, and that's probably dictated the journey. It was a pivotal moment. Yes, I ended up doing some coaching in rugby in Doha, but that was really just to keep myself involved with a team sport while I was working with the track and field program, keeping my coaching within a team sport up to scratch, and just being involved with rugby, keeping my foot in the door in rugby, to pursue a coaching career in rugby. That was not on the table at that stage. It was just my way of keeping my foot in the door and helping the expats there have at least a decent program and coaching program. I was well supported over there with some really good support coaches with me as well. And one coach in particular, who's now over in New Zealand coaching track and field background, Kerry Hill, wonderful support for me. Is working with the New Zealand track and field program, New Zealand Sevens as well. I mean, great guys to work with, even within the rugby club. Aaron Palmer, who was coaching with me, ended up being the head coach at Doha when I left. Another guy who worked at Aspire, running the talent ID program with Aspire Academy. So really good connections. But I knew what I wanted to do. So once I'd been working at Aspire, I mean, I knew I was always going to be strength and conditioning, high performance.
What about strong influences, mate? Obviously, you've been in a few world-class programs there. So I imagine there's probably a long list of great practitioners you've worked with, but who have sort of been the ones that have influenced your philosophy and your sort of methods the most?
Yeah, good. Another good one. I think the ones that influence you, there's people that influence you along the journey at various stages of your career, and um, they'll float in and float out of your world at various stages. And I'm very, very respectful and appreciative of the ones that I've dealt with along the way. But a few names really, um, really pop into my mind, and who have probably influenced me or guided me and mentored me just through, you know, odd chats, phone calls, coffees, and coaches that I've worked with along the way. So, I mean, obviously, my wife's the number one um, influencer and mentor. She rules the roost. But the track and field coaches that I worked with in Aspire, I've got enormous respect for them. The learns and what I learned over the 3-4 years that I was at Aspire on training camps, and we're away for 6-week camps, etc. Uwe Hackers, who's former German and former GDR and former German national coach and sprints and hurdles coach, just being able to sit down and have a red wine with him and talk through the old East German school system, his upbringing, the systems that he was exposed to, within Germany and the former GDR. Carlos Cavallaro, who's one of the most unbelievable endurance coaches in the world, Brazilian national coach. These guys in particular were very influential, just to talk shop with, and just whether it's sitting around track and field meets in the middle of Scandinavia for 2-3 days and in between events, and just chewing the fat, picking each other's brains, and understanding how they think, how they coach. That was so important for me in terms of influencing how I think and operate. Certainly, the guys I worked with in the Middle East are very influential, and Martin Boucher became a really good friend of mine, living in the same villa compound that we were fortunate to be inhabiting in the Middle East. But then at the same time, look, I've got some really good coaches that I've worked with along the way. I mentioned Andy Friend before, who worked with me in the National Sevens program, and we started studying at university back in 1990. And he's been enormous. He may or may not be listening to this, but a really, really good father figure to me in terms of, he's only a few years older, but we're just, talking shop, and he's had his own journeys as well and been through some similar experiences, but certainly voice of reason, and had worked in Japan as well. It was a really good sounding board for me before we went to Japan, because he'd worked in Japan at Suntory and with the Japan national team and Eddie, so forth. So I've got lots of insights into the real world Japanese experience up there. My supervisors, obviously Rob Newton in particular, Greg Haff. Rob's ridden the journey with me throughout my career, really, since I started my master's degree into finishing my PhD, which took nearly 11 years, I think. So bouncing ideas off him and staying to the cause. Like, there was a few times I put up the white flag during the PhD process, and think I'm not going to be able to do this working full-time professional sport, but we managed to find a way. Former CEOs, like CEO Stephen Trigg from the Adelaide Crows, a really good sounding board. Went through a tough period before he left Adelaide to move to Carlton, and I still really look forward to catching up with him, bouncing ideas off him. Not in the high performance world, but just in general as a human being, how you manage situations, how you manage people. So it's really, really important. At the same time, guys I worked with when I first came to Adelaide, like, I've got enormous respect for Stephen Schwert, who was a former high performance manager at the Crows, who moved on to South Australian cricket. I was really fortunate to work with him and Matty Bode, who's now at Carlton, to give me a really the most unbelievable fast track to understanding understanding the game of AFL, the culture, the physiological requirements. Like it was a real fast track, and I've got enormous respect for them. And I call them close friends now. And if you want to call it influence, people who have influenced you along the way, those two in particular are highlights for people within our industry. Probably more recently, I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to work with John Quinn, who former high performance manager with Essendon, and was a high performance manager at the Giants when it first came into inception as well. We've got John as a consultant, but he's a really good sounding board for me. Very, very experienced in shared passion with track and field as well as obviously AFL. So to bounce ideas off John at various stages throughout the week, I'm really, really lucky to be able to have that in my back corner. And then there's some guys along the way which I've talked to throughout their journey from rugby and AFL, and Jason Webber is another example I've got enormous respect for. Talk shop, bounce ideas off when he was at Fremantle, as well as now in his current role with Speed Signature and some of the work that he's doing. So I think they're probably the key highlights for me, Jack. But they've experienced at different stages of your life, really. Another one I would say Phil Walsh. Phil Walsh, I got the opportunity to work with him in Adelaide for 1 year. Enormous influence on me, but unfortunately, due to the tragedy that occurred in 2015, he's not with us anymore. But I look at that snapshot for the period. We were all fortunate to be able to work with him. He was an enormous sounding board for me while I was at the Crows at that time. So I still, in the back of my head, think about some of the words and advice that he provided me, and you pops into your head from time to time when you're going through a tough period. And so that's probably the main ones that pop into my head.
Yep. And last couple of questions before we dive into the topic, mate. But highlights that spring in front of mind that you're most proud of to experience over your career?
Yeah, a few different ones really. But look, I think I probably look at the highlights in terms of experiences. I mean, there's a few definite highlights, no doubt, but experiences. I think a highlight in the journey was working in Japan and understanding how they train, their respect for each other, respect for elders. They run through brick walls, their training ethic. If you talk about that, how they operate as a society, as well as within the team environment. Certainly the highlights of working within the Middle East, like I mentioned before, like we had a compound of 11 villas, which if I look back, it's a pinch yourself moment, whereby I had guys like Martin Boucher, Alberto Mendez, Villanueva, exercise physiologist, sports scientists, some of the best ones around the world. Sammy Kewitt-Turner was on an unbelievable biomechanist who worked with us with the track and field program. Olivia Gerard. These names you would all perhaps know. Ben Simpson, who's an Aussie guy ripping the world apart up at PSG in France as a sports scientist. And the highlight being the support team that I was privileged to work with the track and field team, which I mentioned before, to travel around the Europe and Scandinavia in particular, the sports psychologists, Jaime Diaz, Francois Fouchard, an unbelievable physiotherapist. Like, these guys are just from all around the world. That was a highlight, and you look back at it and go, what an opportunity I had and we had, and the people that worked there had, which doesn't happen that often. So I look at that as a real highlight. Definitely with the Aussie Sevens team, the experiences we had there. Yes, we went to the Olympics. We weren't as successful, but we had about 6-7 months to prepare with a brand new coach. But to drop or get back on the tools, so to speak, when you're on the road with only 5 or 6 staff members, it's a real family. You have to work well together. With Andy Friend and the 2 wonderful managers that we work with, Jared Hodges and Luca Liusi, Katie Ryan, our physiotherapist, and Matt Johnson, who's arguably one of the best rugby analysts in the world. Was another pinch yourself moment that we got to travel as a family, and you have to be able to get on well together, watch each other's backs. That experience was a highlight. And fortunately for us, we were able to win the Sydney Sevens on the World Series. It's the first time any Australian team had done that, men's team had done that, and that was a definite highlight in our career and my career in terms of winning on your home soil. And then I suppose the another highlight, and it's got to be really careful because it's a highlight, but it's also a really pivotal moment, a sad moment in your life. In 2015, it was a highlight. Being able to work with a coach like Phil Walsh in 2015 in Adelaide, and yes, we had the tragedy occur, but those who had the opportunity and privilege to work with him would realise that was a wonderful highlight in our lives and our careers. Players, staff, coaches, as well. So I always look back at that as a definite highlight, but with the utmost respect for what happened in that year.
And what about most significant challenges throughout your career? And how did you what did you learn from facing those challenges?
Yeah, look, there's a few. The obvious ones that spring to mind, and those who worked through it during the 2020 COVID era, if you want to call it that, in 2021 for us, with Swans and Giants having to be shipped out. Look, I think it was a challenge, but also an opportunity. The real challenge in 2020 was people being stood down, and me being one of many in the industry, and we just talk about our industry, let alone the world community. But in our industry, having staff being stood down, no money. I was on the, if you want to call it, the limited staff role, trying to keep the program going when players were unable to train. We disappeared for a few months, and then when the competition resumed, getting back on track. Certainly at the back end of 2020, the most challenging period was having to let staff. People had reduced salaries. That was in our industry and across the world, but having to let staff go, that was the most challenging thing, and people that you call your friends, and that was really, really sad. I think that was a pivotal moment. How you handle it, well, I don't know personally whether I handled it as best as I could, but the learning experience would be, well, if it happens again, how would you go about it? I think everyone had to deal with it in their own way. Have empathy, sympathy, understand what people are going through. You still got me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. We were told in the middle of the year to pack our bags, and both the Sydney Swans and the Giants pack our bags and get to the airport to head off to Melbourne, and we don't know when we're going to come back. So, and a similar thing, we had a limited staff. Not everyone went. We had to make some decisions very, very quickly: who stays, who goes. So I think just going through that period, you learn a lot about yourself, your staff, your family as well. We had to, those who lived and breathed it, we had to work on a shoestring team. 2 or 3 staff doing AFL, VFL games, trying to keep the program going while we're on the road. Oh, sorry, mate. I just I'm getting some cross. Yeah, I hope it didn't come across.
No, I didn't say anything.
But no. So that was that was a challenge, but also seeing how it's affecting other staff members, coaches as well, and having empathy and sympathy for all, because while we're away in lockdowns and hotels and living on the road, everyone goes through their own challenges and ups and downs and journeys, and you have bad days and good days, and I think the challenge was to keep the program going, but be respectful of people's time, space, what they're going through. Everyone has a bad day. Everyone has some good days, but at the end of it, we're part of a greater cause. So certainly that was a really challenging period, and what I learned from it was really just to have the utmost respect for what people are going through. Like a previous coach used to say to me, everyone's got a story. I think everyone's got a story, and you have to understand that and where they've come from and what they're going through. And I think that came to light in terms of an appreciation of it during those 2 years in particular. And similarly, in Adelaide, and I've got the utmost respect for the players and the staff who went through this. I mean, the 4 years I was there, it doesn't happen very often, but we had Dean Bailey. We lost Dean Bailey as a coach to cancer as well during that time, and he was a father figure to many of the players there, and that was really a real challenging period for us to keep the players humming, keep the staff humming along, but and understanding that people have dealing with their own adversity and grief. But when the tragedy of us losing Phil in 2015 happened, not many teams or staff or players and coaches have experienced that so those sad moments within their tenure at a club. And I think while it was challenging to try and keep the program going, it was and we in 2015 we finished the season on a high. I think we made the second week of finals. The resilience and the way the players and staff handled the situation then was not only a challenge, but I think it bonded the team together. And I think for me personally, it was like, how do what I learned from it was how can I, in my role, keep the program humming along, but be respectful of everyone around me and have that empathy for everyone, understand that everyone's going to be dealing with their own situation, they're grieving at different stages of the day, every week. And just because things look good on the surface and someone's bubbling along, and what's happening underneath may be completely different. And I'll share an example, and I won't mention names, but I remember it was a few weeks after we'd lost Phil, and you can look at all the monitoring data you want, look at the numbers and GPS numbers, etc. And we were flying. We won a few games on the trot. I think we belted West Coast, and I remember getting on a plane, and one of the leaders turned around to me and said, we're absolutely stuffed. Something's going to give here. And I'm like, so we pulled together a high performance team and coaches and said, well, we're flying. Like we're hitting the back end of the year like no tomorrow. But what's happening underneath in terms of how people are dealing with the situation, you sometimes can't see that. And it's really, the learn for me at that period of time was like, things don't always look the same on the surface. We can actually be flying. The team could be flying, but every individual player, staff, coach, whoever they are, will be dealing with things in their own moment. And everyone, like I said before, everyone's got a story. So it's being respectful of that, and knowing, look, if people do talk and staff do talk or players do talk, you've got to listen. And I think that's the most important thing. So we adjusted the program to the last 3-4 weeks of the season before we went into finals. Brought some fun back in and changed things up a bit. But if you hadn't listened and talked to the right people and a few of the players and leaders, I'm not saying it could have happened, but things could have turned pear-shaped. And I think that's probably the big learn for me, to understand human beings, within our environment, in the face of adversity.
Yeah, I appreciate explaining those sort of two significant challenges. I mean, being ahead of performance has its own pressures as it is, but let alone with the pandemic and dealing with death at the club with such a significant person like Phil. So, appreciate you sharing that insight, and no doubt you're the right person for the role to lead that program, both in those situations, mate. But going into our topic, it's probably a good segue. And from your experience, what are sort of the top qualities of that differentiate a high performance team from an average one?
Yeah, probably a cliche. If you had to use the cliche, look, I honestly believe that champion teams will always succeed and perform over time better than a team of champions. I think that's probably the most pertinent thing that I've seen along the way. I think as Adam Kingsley uses the term the yin and the yang, and I think Adam Kingsley, a coach here, you've got to work for each other, understand the human element. Everyone does have a bad day, but it's most importantly how team members communicate with each other and develop and foster relationships. I think if the individuals within that team can really communicate and get on well and understand each other, and it creates this environment where you want to go to war with each other, and trust is a really, really big word. I don't use that word lightly, but must be able to trust each other implicitly. I've seen teams where you may have the most unbelievably qualified strength and conditioners, or sports scientists, or physiotherapists, but can they work together cohesively, respect each other, but get along? It's being able to communicate and have that build and foster relationships, so that when you need to ask the right questions, it's not in a threatening way. Egos can certainly derail a team. Agendas can certainly derail a team. And I hate using this terminology, but a snake in the grass can always derail a team. And you can always be aware of the snake in the grass. But I definitely think that the differentiation between a high performance, a really good high performance, and an average one is based on the personalities, let alone the skill sets, and how people communicate and foster the relationships they build. Hopefully that sort of answers your question. So I had, I've got a, so in our role, someone always wants your job, and it's really great to have people with ambitions. And that comes with the territory. It is what it is, but it's really great to have ambitions. But know that time and patience and questions that you ask will help in the long run, help you develop philosophies along the way. And it might be a staff member that thinks, well, I really want Jack's role or Nick's role, and I'm going to develop my philosophies on the way. But why is Nick making those decisions? And that person will develop their own philosophies along the way. And I know there's a current high performance manager within the AFL now. We had this conversation a while back, and he said, well, ultimately he would like to be a high performance manager and wants my job, but to work with and function within our team, he knew his role and how he played the role, and for me it was like, well, how can I help this person achieve his goals down the track by fostering an environment where he or she can flourish, apply his own philosophies within the context of how we operate as a team. And I think that's really important. But I definitely think I'll come back to the relationship conversation. And I used to hate the word fit, but I really believe that people fit within a team because they know how they know how their role can influence the team, be part of the team, but also how they can feel they're valued with their contribution within that team, if that makes sense. So, and it's trying to foster that relationship. I think if the staff members within that team know that their contribution is respected and valued by other members of the staff, let alone the high performance manager, that just creates this environment where people just want to work for each other, and it's just like this bubbling enthusiasm within the team.
Yeah, it's a great segue for the next part, mate. Sort of two questions, but I guess We'll start with the first one. As a head of performance, how do you like to onboard a new staff member to your team? What's some of your sort of key ways to ensure that they do feel like they're part of it, and I guess they feel comfortable early, but they've also got a good understanding on how to fit in and what success looks like in their role?
Yeah, no, really, really good question. I think, I mean, first and foremost is like if it to ascertain what that new member's skill set may be able to bring and fit within the team, within the high performance and medical team. And one strength coach or strength power coach or senior strength power coach or strength conditioning coach may have a particular skill set, but they might have their value add. They have experiences and qualifications or a skill set that may be a value add or overlap with other members of the team. So I think it's really just finding what their skill set is, what the value add is, and how they can contribute within the team, and then be able to provide them opportunities. So, well, hang on, we've got this staff member with this skill set, this dietitian with this skill set, this physiotherapist with this skill set. So, getting the new person to be able to respect and understand how the yin and the yang operates within the high performance team, how we operate as a unit, how the conversations transpire, whether it's from meetings to people's contribution, what role each individual plays, and then helping them and helping facilitate their involvement within that team environment. So what role does this new team member need to play to keep the program humming along? It's within our structures and systems. So it's perfect examples. Like I might be a midfielder in an AFL team, but the coach wants me to play halfback. I've got a halfback up my sleeve, but for the team to perform on field well within the game plan and the structure, the team needs to play the role of halfback. Yes, I think I'm a midfielder, but my role is to play halfback. So, but you may be required at times to work your way into the midfield and play that midfield role. So it's a similar thing within a team. You might be I want to be the best strength power coach in the world, but I've got a real active interest in nutrition and dietetics. But we've got a dietitian that's working, really well qualified dietitian who's been here for a few years and applying best practice. So that's great. But if she's not here, you might have to pick up the pieces and fill that role. So it's just understanding that. I take the view that allow the first few months to settle into the role, get the new staff member to just sit back and watch how things operate within the guidelines of how the program will operate and the direction of the program. A new strength power coach comes in, understanding what's gone on before, what exercises, what's your philosophy on choice of strength exercises, understanding that, in AFL players are quite sensitive to change and you can't flick the switch straight away, and understanding what that transition might look like. You may have your own philosophies, but understanding where they've come from and where they need to go within the context of the direction of the program, the football program, and the game plan, the game style, etc. But most importantly, sit back and see how your other teammates within that environment operate and work, and then they'll be able to find their way and use the opportunity to build relationships, foster those relationships, like I mentioned before, so that the older staff members who've been there before, you're actually gaining their trust as much as anything, and they're getting to understand your philosophies, and I think that's the easy way for a new staff member to transition in. You can easily come in and just go, bang, this is how we're going to do it. But from what I've seen over the years, it doesn't succeed very often.
Yep. Yeah, which answers the second part of that question. What's sort of your approach to when you're new to a program or new to an environment to fit in? Like I said, but I think you've answered that quite well, the importance of relationships, communication, and building it over time. So that's how you sort of approach it when you're in a new program, whether it be a leadership position or a support role.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I probably, like, I'll use an analogy back when I was working in the Middle East at Aspire. Like, I had a strong track and field background, had certain beliefs, and wanted to implement a lot of things in the track and field program at Aspire. But if I came, I came with a lot of ideas. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I took the approach that I need to really sit back and just listen to these wonderful coaches that I work with. I mentioned Uwe Hackers and Carlos and um, these guys that are so experienced. Just sit back, listen to how they think, how they operate, and then eventually, um, when they start asking your thoughts and your advice or how we can implement different things within the program, well, then you know you've got, well, they've, most importantly, they can trust you, but at the same time that they know that I have the respect for them, and I think that's really an important point, that as a support staff member or a leader, you trust is not, doesn't happen immediately. It's you've got to work at it, and you've got to foster the relationships to build that trust and synergy, because if you don't, things aren't going to work. You could just be an operator within a team and get your job done, but ultimately the success of the athlete or the players really depends on that relationship. The support team around that athlete, and they've got to be in synergy, and the athletes will thrive off that. If they see that the support team, whether it's the coach and the support team or the support team themselves, are in synergy and humming, and they trust each other and back each other, then the athlete will perform at their best. They know that they've got the people around them have got their best interests at heart. If they see that, oh no, that's just the strength guy comes in from time to time, he doesn't understand what the coach wants, or the high performance manager wants, or the physiotherapist here, he's got his views on different things, but it's not in the same thought process as the coach or the high performance staff. The players start seeing through that, and then they just go off on their own. So I think, I hope that answers your questions, but it's probably a common theme in all of this.
Yeah, definitely. No, sure does. Moving into the more, I guess, the art of it all, leadership qualities, communication, management. Over the years, what have been some of your favourite ways to develop those skill sets, I guess, for the audience listening in, that feel on top of the technicalities, their load management, spreadsheets, and their strength, programming and technical models with running efficiency, but managing programs is something they want to develop. What has been some of your favourite ways to develop that side of the role?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of trying to develop the management skills, so to speak, I think you got to be prepared to make mistakes. I think that's the most important thing. Early on, probably the biggest criticism of myself and that I was provided was I used to micromanage too much, because you want to be a perfectionist, but it's micromanaging the strength coach, micromanaging the conditioning guy, micromanaging the rehab, micromanaging so many different things, but you can't do that because then it ends up being a situation where the staff are not able to think for themselves, not able to flourish, bring their ideas to the table, feel like they're contributing and valued. So, but it was all more around, okay, so you want to make sure things are done perfectly. So I took that feedback on myself, but also from a learn, just to be able to, the most important thing is be able to sit back and if you want to use the cliches, have a look at the helicopter view and see how things are working and functioning, as well as being able to perform your role as a high performance manager, physical performance, whatever you want to call the name, the title, to fully. I think Burgee mentioned it in his podcast the other week. Like a lot of our time in our role was spent in meetings with coaches and footy operations meetings, etc., etc. So I think it's part of the recruitment process too. That I think it's really important that you've got a right-hand man, and this is just my own personal belief: a right-hand man, or 2IC, or whatever you want to call that role, who can drive the standards of the program, drive the philosophy of the program, keep the program humming along when you're not visibly present, and be able to trust them that they can get it done. And if they make a mistake, that's no problem. They feel empowered that they can do that. But you also know that there's trust, the relationship that you fostered and built, there's trust there to allow that to happen. So, for me, from the early days of being a performance manager, to let go of things is probably the most important thing. But then trying to get myself to be able to understand each person individually as a human being and what makes them tick, because again, every staff member has their good days and their bad days. People turn up to work, they're not going to be operating at 99% every day they walk into the club. Most people who work in this environment love what they do. There's no one in the industry that I've experienced that doesn't turn up to work not loving what they do. We don't work in a 9-to-5 job environment, so it's almost a buy-in, it's almost a given that they love what they're doing. Like to keep people operating at 99% every day of the week, they'll burn out, and it's probably the big one. So it's understanding, who's up, who's down, who needs a bit of a push along, who needs a day off, a half a day off, and then feeling comfortable to be able to ask team members within the high performance team to roll up the sleeves for someone else. And I think that's something I've tried to develop and promote over the years. And I don't do it well some days. Absolutely, I'm the first to admit that I'll go home at night and think, geez, I stuffed that up, Nick. I should have helped this staff member out or approach this a different way. But I think the most important thing along the way is just being able to create an environment where staff members can help each other where needed. We had a staff member. I won't say where, but we found out that one of the staff members was just burning the candle at both ends, and having a sleep on his way home, driving home because he's burned out. And we only found out about this because of the relationships that we'd fostered between each other. And I was like, well, we've got to look out for this person. We can't have that. He's turning up to work every day because he loves what he does, and he's going to try and operate at 99%. But to understand that can't happen because we're human beings, and there's a tipping point for everyone. I think, as a manager, but let alone a staff member within the high performance team, I think we have to look out for each other all the time, because this is not a normal day-to-day job. We're thriving on an energy within an environment, which is up here. I mean, throughout the week and the 3 hours on game day, like we play our first game on Saturday night against Collingwood, round 0. Everyone's going to be on edge for 3 hours, so you can't be at that point all the time. And I think that's something to bear in mind. And as a manager, I have to be acutely aware of it and not take my eye off the ball with it. And if I was micromanaging like I did back in the early, I wouldn't have seen it. I definitely wouldn't have seen it. I don't see it as I see it now. And again, not perfect. And I think I have to keep reminding myself reminding myself personally, but just trying to create that environment where the other staff members can keep an eye out for me too. Like walk in the office to say, Nick, let me handle that for you, or don't worry about that. Well, how are you going? And the old question, are you okay? How are you going, mate? It sometimes means more at various stages of your life than any time, because it might be as simple as that. Well, I'm not doing okay. Probably need to talk about this one, or no, I had a run-in with one of the assistant coaches. I need to talk my way through it. Just simple things like that.
You talked about, you keep going, sorry, man.
No. I think the other one, which I think is really important, just from in our role is you've got to be able to sell. You're not a salesman, but you've got to be able to sell an idea. You've got to be able to sell a belief and sell a philosophy. And the way you present things to coaches, staff, and players is you may not work at times, and you just got to find what the ticking. Sorry, I wouldn't use the word ticking. What the magic little moment is, or how you present it. Like I remember in Adelaide, we had to present to the coach about 5 different versions about why we're not training at the right intensity. And he said, no, we're training with intensity. Well, we presented graphs, we presented pictorials, we presented as a team. We came up, we spent hours and hours trying to present the right way until he finally got it. So understanding what the coach sees and wants, and is he a visual person? Is he a numbers person? Is he a so it's just being able to find the right way to sell a philosophy, sell an idea. And I think that's something you have to bear in mind. Like I can come up with the best PowerPoint, best presentation about our preseason numbers within an hour. Get our sports scientists, crunch the numbers, put a little presentation together. But if that doesn't resonate with the coach, or can't get across the line with a coach or a staff member or a player, then it's not worth weight in gold. So I think it's something that we have to bear in mind and always think about who's receiving the information and what's the message they get out of it. And there's not a one size fits all approach with that. You've got, sometimes you're going to have to scrap and borrow and steal different ideas and views and work with your team, your high performance team, your sports scientists, to be able to present the right information, and then most importantly, deliver and sell the message that you want.
And going back to that 2IC role and how important it is that they're driving the standards of the program, and as the head of performance, you're there to support them, also support the other members of the team. In an ideal world, I guess obviously there's soft caps, and there's that's logistically going to have its constraints with it. But do you see the head of performance for the program to be at its best? There, they can support, if the strength coach needs to have a day off, they can go into the gym and support. So I've got experience in strength and power. Is your 2IC running the conditioning program, the warm-ups? If they need a day off, the head of performance can chop them out. And then you've got your sports scientist with the GPS side of things. Are they 3 different roles? Is it sort of merging your conditioning guy with your GPS? That's one role. How do you sort of see it working? Or is it the head of performance obviously facilitating the conditioning programs and running the warm-ups? What's optimal for you, do you think, for key roles?
I think, again, Jack, it probably depends on the skill sets of the staff members you've got in place. So we've got a sports scientist who can also coach in the gym, who also helped run the rehab program last year. So I think it does depend on the skill sets of the staff members that you have. And this is just every performance manager, or whether it's in AFL or rugby or whatever team sport, high performance medical team that they're managing, will have their own philosophies. But my own one is that I look at it and think that the 2IC person, if I was sick, I couldn't operate for the next 3 months, can they slip into that role of a high performance manager fairly quickly and efficiently? And if they can't, then I've got to try and work a way to help them understand the demands of the role, let alone the day-to-day operations of how the program needs to run. So that's got its own difficulties because as I mentioned, we're often in coach meetings and operations meetings, and not as much on the floor on the gym floor. Yes, we're on the field a lot. In my role, I'm particularly on the field working with the coaches, but to understanding the budgets and soft caps and dealing with finance and dealing with all those little things. So the intricate parts of it that you don't see on front and center on the floor in front of the players, they're the little things that you need to try and drip feed the knowledge and ability to be able to pick up those pieces as needed with that 2IC. But the same time, they've got to be, in my view, they've got to be a jack of all trades. So you've got to be able to jump in the gym where needed. You've got to be able to take warm-ups as needed. You've got to be able to run a conditioning program as needed. And different clubs operate in different ways. So be able to look at the loads and monitoring and put information together, make some recommendations, create drill lists for on the day for particular for a particular training session, understanding what the drills in terms of GPS numbers or movement qualities, what they elicit, and understanding what the coaches are trying to get out of those drills. So it's a really a jack of all trades type of role. If you don't have that, and this is just my own personal view, if you don't have that, people end up in silos. So there's no, look, I'm just a strength coach. That's all I do. I think the days of just doing that are long gone. I think COVID, the situation in COVID taught us that. You need to be able to roll their sleeves up and fill water bottles up and be a dietitian, run the conditioning program, run warm-ups, run GPS. I think I think that's one thing that the lockdowns and when we travelled in COVID taught us. But I think if people start isolating themselves and staying in silos, that's all they're going to do. And then what ends up happening is that when the heat happens or pressure comes within an environment, you're off the back of a lot of losses. It's like you'd be sitting here and only won one game before the bye, and people start going to preservation mode. So no, that's my role. I'm just going to sit in front of the computer, and that's my sports science role. I'm just going to do my stuff in the gym, bang bang, get out, go home. But that's not conducive, one, to a cohesive team environment. But at the same time, the next person in charge who's taking over a high performance program needs to be able to have a line of sight on every part of the program, and that's just my own personal view. Because if they don't, it's too difficult to jump or too big of a jump, and the expectation is too high to be able to just automate, assimilate into that high performance management role, because you'll just end up making some mistakes, losing sight of things, and potentially micromanaging too much, without being able to manage the people and manage the program, fostering those relationships, seeing the wood through the fog, seeing the trees through the fog. Because if you can't see the trees through the fog, it's you're caught in this sort of limbo land. But you're just sort of swimming and hoping for the best.
And you mentioned, sure does, absolutely, yeah. You mentioned importance of intensity and presenting that to the coaches. How does sports science technology sort of influence your decision making on day to day? What are some of your key pillars, I guess, that you like to keep your finger on the pulse with when managing an AFL team?
Yeah, look, I think definitely intensity. I think that's understand. Look, I think understanding the game plan is critical. Understanding the way the coach wants to play these systems and structures. Whereas, if you were to use AFL terminology, we're going to be a contest team. We're going to be playing more a game where we're going to hit long down the line and play contests to maintain possession, keeping the ball off opposition. Or going to be playing with speed, or we're a transition team or a turnover team. It's really understanding that, and then how then to provide the right detail with using technology to help the coach and the coaching team understand this is the level we need to get to. I know the term worst case scenario gets banded around a lot, and many times definitely not understood correctly. But if you want to put a broad inverted commas terminology around worst case scenario, understanding what the most difficult demands of the game are, in line with the way the coach wants to play, and then being able to present it the right way. So, of course, we've got the advantage of using GPS technology. And coaches are now a lot more, I'd say, a lot more versed in understanding what GPS numbers are than they were in previous years. But just being careful that they haven't got over reliance on them. So certainly we use certain parameters within GPS variables, whether it's meters per minute, very high intensity running percentages, acceleration densities, whatever it might be that any performance team wants to hang their hat on in terms of the most important variables, but being able to present them the right way and making sure that the coaches understand that if we need to hit these markers and parameters for these particular drills, and understanding what drills elicit what intensities. And I think that's really important to make it, so it's an educational piece for the coaches, but also for us to be able to put this framework together for them to understand. But at the same time, don't rely on the technology. I think we've got a lot of monitoring tools, and all teams will be monitoring their players to the hilt. I've got no doubt about that, and there's probably some similar things and some detail on variables and monitoring tools that it may vary from club to club. But I think it's the most important is how you're using the information. What information you're using, is it valid, reliable? How you're using the information to inform decision making. And if you're relying on that data and technology to inform decision making, understanding that the players need to understand it, and the coaches need to understand it. If the players don't understand it and they think they're just guinea pigs, well, you're not going to get buy-in, and you won't get trust from the coaching group. And I'll use an analogy. Like if I said to the coach, look, I'm just letting you know today that this player's groin squeeze is down by 30. I need to pull him out of match play. Well, you better have a really good reason for it, because the coach may need that player to play a particular role in that match play drill within the session. But if you can show them in the right context, in the right way, that, look, listen, this guy's got this guy's on the edge of the cliff. We need to keep an eye on him. The coach knows that you're using this information to inform decision making, and you've used it before, you exhibited it before. We need to look after this player today, but he's going to be all right for game day. Don't worry about that. We'll make sure he's all right for game day. Then again, you talk about the yin and the yang, which I mentioned before. You've got this synergy where, okay, the coach trusts you. He knows you're using this information to inform decision making. The staff members around you know that you're using this information to form decision making, and most importantly, the players understand that, because the players will always want to get picked. But if they understand it's in their best interests, fantastic. But I come back to as well, the most important, in my mind, the most important performance technology tool is your voice, talking to the players and knowing your players, understanding your players, and importantly, having a relationship with your players. You don't have to be best friends, but being able to have a strong enough relationship to go, or learn to foster that relationship, to be able to say to them, listen, I need you to do this today. I need you to run over 90% and hold it for as long as possible. I need you to watch your speed in this particular drill. I need you to, we're going to look after you for these couple of drills today. But the coach is on board, everyone's on board. It's not going to inhibit your selection on the weekend. And it's trying to create that environment that everyone's got their best interest, the player's best interest at heart. And we do. We use a lot of technology within our environments. But I come back to, keep coming back to: is it reliable? Is it valid? Is it informing decision making? Or we're just using it as it'll be good to have a look at. And we look at numbers all the time off the side. Yeah, let's have a look at that, but that's not informing our decision making right now. But we've got PhD students for that, and our sports science coordinator, for example, can look at some numbers behind the scenes, and we can talk about that behind closed doors. But in terms of the real crux of it, using the technology to inform decision making, I think you've got to be sure that you're using the information correctly, and to reiterate that the message to the players, to the coaches, and within the high performance management team is really, really clear. We're using this to inform our decision making. If we're not, then it's just a good to have. It's nice to have. We can be innovative. We can look at all this stuff, but what are our big rocks and what we're going to hang our hat on? And that's probably the most important thing I'd say in answer to your question, Jack.
Yeah. Just a side note, the yin and yang, you mentioned Adam Kingsley has brought that in as a bit of a messaging. How do you guys sort of sell that to the players in terms of its application to high performance sport, I guess?
I think Adam talks about it more in terms of how every part of the game plan works in synergy. So if it's without giving away trade secrets, but if you compare it to a high performance team, it's if our defensive system is set up the right way, our attack will flourish off the back of it. So if in a high performance team, if our systems and structures are set up the right way, in terms of monitoring, I'll use that as an example, then the performance side of the program, how the players perform on field will flourish from it. If we don't, we'll end up with injuries, or they'll be underprepared or not train hard enough, etc. So if that system's not functioning correctly, and so whereas how we structure our periodization, how we what use of technology and our big rocks are allowing us to inform our decision making to allow them to perform, as well as assist us with preventing injuries. If that's not set in stone, and every piece of that is not functioning correctly, then they're not going to be able to perform well, or we're going to miss something on the field. They're not going to be able to run out games or be fit enough, or we're going to lose a few guys with injuries. We know we're going to lose people with injuries if we're pushing the limits with these guys. But we need, if we can trust that our systems and processes are functioning properly, well, the yin and the yang happens. So the on-field performance flourishes. It doesn't always happen that way, and there's always going to be breakdowns. But more often than not, it's a breakdown in a function of that system. So, we might have missed something, or which happens. It happens in our environments in all clubs. No system's perfect. Teams get goals scored against them because something is broken down defensively, or a fundamental handball's gone astray, and someone wins a game because of a mistake. That happens. But all we can do, all we can control, is making sure those systems and structures are functioning at the best as best as they can, without the white noise, without a lot of the white noise coming in.
Yep. Fantastic. Thanks for elaborating, mate. And last couple of questions on the topic. I guess, can you share an example of a train wreck situation? Like you mentioned, you can have the best systems and processes in place, but things are going to happen in high performance sport. It's a chaos and brutal game. But I guess when things aren't going well, whether we call that train wreck or whatever we want to frame that, what's a situation where what are some key areas, I guess, to manage the team? Because as we know, sometimes it's not as bad as it looks, and how do you, I guess, deal with perception of the club and getting in front of it when it's not going well?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, a lot of clubs will have different examples of their own train wrecks, and we would have had a perceived calf epidemic back in 2019 for numerous reasons. And I think the most important thing is that what ends up happening is that if you're getting pressure and questions being asked from numerous sources, let alone media, it might have been clubs in the past where there's been a hamstring epidemic or a syndesmosis epidemic, and there's probably there's different train wrecks. Don't get me wrong. I'm just alluding to an injury focused epidemic. But what ends up happening is that coach quite rightly will start asking questions and The GM will start asking questions, board members start asking questions, and the challenging thing is that staff more often than not will go into their shells or go into this into defense mode. Well, it's not the strength. Is it the strength program? Not the strength program, or a side comment or a slight comment will come from a coach. Oh, it must be the strength coach, and he's doing too much calf work in the gym, or too many isometrics in the gym, or a physiotherapist might throw away line. Oh, he's done it's different programs to what's gone on in the past, or someone within your performance team might say, oh, I don't quite agree with that. So what ends up happening is that these little shots get fired across the bow, all in the name of defence. Everyone goes into this defensive. It's a natural human trait, isn't it? You feel you're on the back foot, and you think, geez, is it me? Is it have I done something wrong, or have we not managed the loads correctly? Did they run too fast? Have we done too much volume? And I think the train wreck can happen where people just go into their shells and they put up this barrier, and the challenge is to try and get everyone together. I wouldn't say in the same room, but just say, look, how are we going to learn this? What have we missed as a group? It could as we know, like these injuries, like an injury epidemic, if you want to call it that, can happen because of multiple reasons. Like new strength coaches come in, the surface of the ground isn't quite right. Like at the end of 2019, we had to resurface the whole oval because there's some challenges ahead with the turf. New performance coach comes in. We're training with more intensity. We're not respecting on individual players their past history. Like, okay, well, let's just knuckle down with this. Out of this calf epidemic, we've got 3 players who've had a number of occurrences over many years, and we inherited from other clubs. So when you start filtering through all the numbers and say, well, is it as bad as first thought? Yes, no, maybe. It's like triaging the situation. Yes, bring in an outside expert or an independent expert. Whether it's a Craig Purdom as an example, I'm just pulling out a name to help with a look through a different lens. And which can, as you know, Jack, can be threatening to people. Think, oh, we're going to bring in someone to people start going. Well, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I can see. Well, hang on a minute. No one's disrespecting anyone's expertise. This is just to have an independent view to say, hey guys, have you thought about this? Have you thought about why didn't we think about that? Because we get caught up in this defensive moment. So I think that it can be a train wreck if it's not handled internally correctly, but also at the same time being able to understand and sell a message to the right people that there's some really well qualified people here trying to get to the bottom of it. There's many reasons for it. So it's trying to triage that train wreck to go, well, okay, who's and from an individual and team perspective, who's suffering the most in this? So as an example, it might be, well, most of the shots have been fired at the strength program. Well, hang on, he's in a deep, dark place at the moment. This strength coach, we need to get him out of the bottom of the barrel here and help him as a human being, as a coach. He's a very well qualified coach, but it's not just a strength program. Or was he given a directive to undertake certain exercises within the gym? But helping him understand it's not the strength program. Or hang on, it actually might be the fact that, geez, look at the very high intensity running numbers we're producing this over time, this pre-season or this season compared to last year. And you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together and you say, well, hang on, it's not a one size fits all or one element in this. So I think the triaging of human beings within the process is critical. But at the same time, getting everyone in the same room, in inverted commas, I don't mean it in the same room literally, but in the same room and say, well, hang on, we're going to thrash this out and learn together and find a way with no one feeling threatened at all. No one's jobs are on the line with this. And if people understand that this is not a finger pointing exercise or finger pointing process, then they'll be just fine. but it's a really difficult situation. I only use the injury one because it often happens. No one will go through our jobs within an AFL environment or rugby environment where something like this happens, or you've had 3 hamstrings in 2 weeks. Geez, what's going on? First thing comes up, what's going on with the program? What are we doing? Well, hang on a minute. And it's easy. People go bang, put up the barriers, and it's how you manage that situation and navigate your way through it. Even as a manager, you think, and you start putting your defensive hat on. Geez, what did I? Have I missed the boat here? Have I not, managed the staff appropriately, or kept an eye on have I not kept an eye on the strength program well enough? I start asking you those. You go home at night, sit at home. Geez, what happened there? Or did these guys not check in properly? Do their wellness properly? Did you go back and through? Or he didn't do his groin squeeze last week. Why didn't you do his groin squeeze? We missed that. So you start going through all these things, even as in my role. So I think the challenge is just try and get everyone thinking that it's not non-threatening environment. We're going to work our way through this together and come out the other side in a good spot. So, I mean, that's just one example. And I think and the other train wreck situation is when some clubs will go through this where coach gets sacked middle of the season. People are on eggshells. People are not sure who the next coach is coming in. You're starting to lose a lot of games. Everyone's on tender hooks. Everyone's fighting for survival. Am I going to be here next year? Am I not going to be here next year? Whether you've got a contract or you don't have a contract. Do I want it? People asking, do I really want to be in this environment? Are management being transparent about the whole process? People just start asking these questions, and you start, the Chinese whispers start happening behind closed doors, and then it's a slow demise in terms of the train wreck. It's like this train having a little nudge, little crash, and then it just ends up bang, bang, and things almost fall apart, literally, where people aren't talking to each other. Is that coach going to get the job? Is someone else going to get the job? There's rumours about this coach outside. You read the media, but then people are not. Their staff members are not functioning at their best, and same time players. So in my role, let alone every other staff member's roles, how do you motivate people and staff members, and let alone yourself, to finish the season in a really, really good spot. That you've done everything possible to keep the program going, and it's a real challenge, because we love what we do. I mentioned earlier in the interview that we love what we do. We turn up to work because we want to be here. It's not a 9-to-5 job, but in those situations, there's times where people will be driving to work saying, "I just want the season to finish. I love what I do. I want the season to finish," because you almost feel helpless. My contribution to the program is not going to help with the result on the weekend. You start second guessing yourself. So, the challenge as a manager, and I'm only talking about myself, is to be able to try how can I motivate, let alone myself, but the staff members around me, whether it's the physiotherapists, even coaches, like the coaches that you work so closely with, who are on tender hooks, who are not sure what's going to happen, and having some real genuine empathy for what they're going through. Whereas to sit down after a training session, have a beer with them, and just talk shop and talk shit, so to speak. I think that's so important. But someone's got to manage the situation, manage the program. If it's not your GM football, someone else has. And that's where people have to pick up the pieces from time to time. Like, someone's having a bad day, someone has a good day. Yes, we're on the receiving end of a scoreboard. We don't know who the coach is going to be. We don't know whether we're going to be here next year. It's a real difficult one, and I don't have the answer for it, but it's something to be aware of, because I think in our roles, it's going to happen at some point. It will happen. If you haven't experienced it, it does happen, and you have to be prepared for it. And sometimes you're not prepared for it, and you're just going to have to live your way through it and learn from it, and learn how you're going to handle it better next time. And I'm 52 years of age. I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. I'm still learning how to handle different situations and within this environment. despite whatever experiences you've got. And I'm sure the more experienced high performance managers around the country, in AFL in particular, will be the same. So if you talk to Burjo, talk to Peter Burge, talk to Andrew Russell, they all say the same. I don't no doubt. We still have to find ways to how we manage different situations in these potential train wreck type situations.
Right. It's been a great chat, Nick. I really appreciate the level of detail that you've gone into, both from an insight on how you've approached yourself and conducted yourself over this program. I think someone that hasn't worked in elite sport has a fair sense of what is involved now, and of course those that are working in elite sport have got some nice gems there that they can apply into a difficult situation. They can help them manage their way through it. But just from a general philosophy as well, just an insight into how you conduct yourself, mate. It's very inspiring, and yeah, really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. More from a personal point of view, do you have in work life pet peeves, anything that makes you angry or fires you up from an industry perspective?
Oh, it depends. Pet peeves. I wouldn't say pet peeve, but I think new interns wanting a job after a year does get my grade a little, especially when some of us old school boys, knowing some of the hard yards that a lot of us have been through to get to live what we're currently living in our careers. I think interns need to understand that they have to bide their time, and I don't mean that disrespectfully whatsoever, but within that environment, the best interns I've had within our programs have gone on to be wonderful strength and conditioning coaches and performance 2 ICs and performance managers. One in particular who started with me in Adelaide is going great guns in another club at the moment. Is no doubt will be a high performance manager within the next couple of years. So it's understanding the environment you're in, where you fit, how you play your role with that environment, how quickly you can learn and adapt and be a team player. Because I've had interns that just come in and expect they're going to have a job within a year, and it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And I think we all know that, but it does. Every year, we go through an interview process with our interns. There's always one or two that you just shake your head and go, I'd love to be able to have the time and try. And sometimes I'll try and make sure I've got the time to sit down and have a good long chat to them about what you need to do, and give if they're happy to receive the information as to what they need to do to succeed. That's one thing that John Quinn's really good at here with us at the club, at the Giants. Other than that, I think the typical pet peeves. I think egos will, as I mentioned before, can destroy a program. People who are adamant about working outside their role, not understanding how their role fits within the environment, that can often be a pet peeve. People with hidden agendas, white antis. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's one of the pet peeves, because it can derail the harmonious environment of a program. I think staff members can disagree at times, but at the end of the day, you've got to have a common voice as a group, and someone drives the ship, and make sure that everyone's humming on the same train. We're on the same train together, and it's good to have robust discussions. But at the end of the day, we're a team, and a harmonious team. So I suppose they're the main ones off the top of my head.
Yep. And favourite way to spend a day off?
As many of my colleagues and friends know, I don't mind walking, getting my phone calls done on a walk, go for a walk and clear my head. Day off training. If I get to the gym or do some sort of training, I treat it as much as a mental break as much as physical. Try not to answer the phone in that period of time. Make sure I have some time with my wife, if kids are at school, or my daughter's at work. Those who know me probably don't mind watching the races pre-season Saturday afternoon. just relaxing in front of the TV and putting a couple of $2 bets on and just taking my mind off things. But pretty simple life, Jack. But just trying to make sure, there's certainly an exercise element, walking element, to just clear your head and have that time and space to breathe, really, and just spend some quality time with your partner in life. Really, I think that's the most important thing. And yes, it might often vent or blow off steam to them, but at the same time, understand that I look at my wife and say, well, she's ridden the journey with me overseas and we've been through a lot together. So it's really important that I provide that time for us to be able to enjoy where we are with our lives at the moment. And because they come on the journey with us. If we're in a prelim final like we did last year, they ride the journey with us, every step of the way. So I think they deserve that we provide some sort of time with them.
100%. No, well said, mate. And obviously, the recording of this is early March in 2024. What's on the horizon, mate, for the rest of the year? What are you excited about?
I think for us within the team, is just really, really excited about seeing how we embrace the challenge and pressure and expectations this year. I know we finished the season off really, really well last year. I know for our senior players in particular, there's a lot of unfinished business, and I know other teams have lost prelim finals by a point or a few points or a goal, and it's off. It does hurt, but you certainly know that the players are up for the challenge and embracing the expectations. I personally haven't seen within our club the players so desperate for success. It's how they handle that expectation, I suppose, and most importantly, probably how I handle it in my role working with the coaching group. It feels like a new experience for me right now. Just to work with the team and work with the coaching group and how we manage these expectations, but that's probably the exciting part, isn't it? Like, you don't know what's around the corner, and we'll find out a little bit about ourselves on Saturday night. But it's a long season as well. We last year, while understanding and building a new game plan, a game style under Adam Kingsley, there was no real expectation. If we made finals, great. If we didn't, we're just part of this journey, and we'll find our way. But the way we finished off the season probably took a lot of people by surprise. But internally, I think we're certainly building towards something. I think the pre-season, we've had a really good pre-season, like all clubs. I mean, it's another cliche. We've had a great pre-season, but at the end of the day, I personally think that this is how we handle and embrace the pressure and expectations this year will determine how well we do. And it is new. It's new for me, new for all of us.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of momentum with the Giants at the moment, so no doubt AFL fans are looking forward to that clash with the Pies. There'll be a lot of eyeballs watching that game. I'm certainly looking forward to it myself. It'll be a fun one to watch to kick off round 0. For those that have got any follow-up questions, Nick, is there a best place to get in contact with yourself for any questions or queries for those listening to this show?
Probably you can send me a direct message on X or Twitter. X, it's I think it's at Poulos, capital P, Nick, all one word, capital N. Or you can send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm sure if you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll definitely be able to find me there and send me a message through LinkedIn. They're probably the two obvious ones.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, for those driving, listening to the recording, don't sweat. I'll add the links to Nick's X and LinkedIn in the show notes, so you can easily click them and connect with him there. But yeah, thanks again, Nick. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for everyone that's tuned in live on this episode. If you tuned in halfway, make sure to to listen to the very start, as there was some great insights into Nick's background at the beginning. So you can find this episode on YouTube before we release it on our podcasts over the next few weeks. Our next live chat is with performance dietitian Georgia Bevan for the Adelaide Crows. That'll be March 21st at 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it, Nick.
Pleasure, Jack.